Okay, sorry, not your contract class. You haven't done your contract class. Your contract class will be with me later on week 8, 9, 10, LU 8, 9, 10 to the rest, end of the semester. So yeah, to recap a bit on your contract X class. So, well, you have to know contract X is a very important element. Now you know why we are doing contract X classes. That is legislation. I will explain on that in a short while. What is legislation? Right? And of course, there are other rules, other laws that is actually more applicable to us as engineer. Things like property law. This is not only us as engineer. I think for anybody who is buying houses, transacting on properties and all that, real estates, these are part of the property law. So all these law are actually based on some form of legislation, some form of acts, and then from there it is being transferred back into a law that is supposed to be executed, that's supposed to be abided by different people. Okay, and of course there are different area of law. There's different enforcer as well. Okay, and criminal law. Criminal law, of course, we're involving the police. The law enforcement group. So this is a crime, a crime. This is about murder, killing, and all this sort of like criminal stuff. Okay, so this one is you end up in jail. Okay, and then, of course, there is another branch of law that is not stated in these notes. It's a law of tort. Law of tort is another area that is super important to engineers. It's about, I think I will also give you pre-recorded lectures on law of tort. It's so important. You have to know. So it will take up one of the class as well. Okay. So law of tort is basically about negligence, about engineers being, professional, because we are governed by professional ethics. And if let's say I don't sign a third party agreement, client and engineers actually sign, client and contractor sign a third party, sign a contract, sign a contract, but then contractor, engineers doesn't sign a contract, engineers like consultant doesn't sign a contract with the house buyer. So if something goes wrong with the product that's being built, you may not be able to cover, you may not be able to address the grievances through law of contract, but you can address the grievances through law of tort, T-O-R-T. And law of tort will actually address, penalize people through the system of duty of care, standard of care, and negligence. So that is another branch of law that we have supposed to be covered under engineering classes as well. Right? So engineering, this particular course, okay? So other things like civil law, of course, is this is about statutes, government statutes, customary laws, okay, codification, constitutions, civil law, and then civil law. The word civil is for all the civilians. So basically, coverage of it is really, really wide. Okay, so constitution law actually talk about, selection of representative, the election, protection of human rights and all that. Administrative law is about, forming, the authority decisions. Like, for example, I think we talk about administrative law is sort of like under, like the councils the government bodies these are all under administrative law. International law, of course, deal with international trading, foreign exchange, banking systems. Banking systems is actually not under international law, but part of it also have banking systems because you're dealing with international bank, international trading. How does the money flow out and come in and all that? So it is part of that as well. Not fully under, we have basic banking law, as it is, but that would also be overflow into international law and international trading. So these are not like separate from each other. Everything are actually intermixed, like in that sense, because day in, day out function, we cover many areas in our day-to-day routine of doing, carrying out our businesses, our life, and doing our, behaving in the society. So all of it will apply. So there's basically two sources of law. So these are type of law, then sources of law. So you know what is the law, what is law, what does law do, what are the type or what are the areas of law that is typically covered by engineers, and then what are the sources of law, you know. So what do you base law on? Okay, the first one is written law. Written law, you may say that, oh, you thought that contract is a written law. It's not like that. Written law are actually federal constitution, state constitution, legislation, and subsidiary legislation. All this legislation, okay, your code, your legislations, these are written rules. So we have 13 states with written rules, which is called federal constitution. Okay. And so this is applicable to the whole Malaysia, and state themselves will have their own ordinances. So meaning that to run the state, you have state government. State also have their own addition. State also have their own specific areas that may not be covered in other states, for example. Like for Sarawak and Sabah, we have a lot of customary law. You know, so these are actually more under ordinances rather than the constitution. Okay, under the federal constitution. Federal constitution is this general written sources that is applicable to the whole. Everybody in the 13 states will be applying that. It's just like US as well. A lot of different states, they actually run differently. So they have their own state, but then they have an overall constitution, but then their state, but US, the state itself is even stronger. Basically, they're pretty much independent already from their federal government. So, the federal government only deals with military and also, international, law. The rest of the other things are all dealt with by their own state. Here, not like that. Yes, here there's many areas that is covered under the federal constitution that is applicable for all the 13 states. And there are some areas only under the state that is run by the state government. So these are written law. And unwritten law is not like, oh, because I talk to you, it's not written, therefore it's unwritten law. No, it is not. Unwritten law is actually other sources that is not written in the constitution. Okay? It's basically things like English law, because we are under the Commonwealth. So let's say if our system does not cover, we can refer to these unwritten sources. Judicial decision from different courts, that is also another systems that will be playing a part in our law. So meaning that if let's say the constitution or the ordinances, the law didn't act, didn't state the thing, okay, the codes, the acts, all didn't state it, then you can refer back to judges' decision, historical judges' decision, okay, our decisions that is overruled by other superior courts, okay? So supreme courts are high courts, court of appeal and federal court. And then superior courts are through Supreme Court and also judicial committee of privy councils and formal federal court. So these are things that the judges do, you know, like they put it under what we sometimes call this is called case law, the cases that is being there. For example, if it's never happened before, you know, I mean, like it never happened before, in, you know, the constitution or the law doesn't cover because it's really never happened before. You can refer to English law, or you can refer to the older, you know, many years back, maybe there's something like that happened. So the judges can base that, you know, take that as a reference and then write down their own judicial decision for that. And then, like, you know, sometimes, you know, how judges say things like, it is so serious that, you know, he has never seen it before. And then the matters is really, it's very serious, and therefore he give this sort of judicial decision, looking back into the older cases and then make his own judicial decision. And this judicial decision will be recorded back into the system of this particular system 2 and 3. And then it will be further referred by future judges. Of course, customs and practices of local residents and ethics, and that is also accepted by law. And of course, we have Islamic law, which is Sharia law that is applicable to all the Muslims in Malaysia. Okay.